Hello and welcome back to the ministry. And today we are talking about the wilderness. Now, recently I released a word talking about walking through the valley, and it's similar but a little bit different. The wilderness is that dark place that you walk through in life where it seems like there's no seeming way out of it. You can't see your way out. You feel like you're in a dark hole. You may see the light at the end of the tunnel, but you got to climb up the walls of this never endingly deep place to get to the top of it. And it's difficult. And it seems like there's no way that you're going to be able to get out of that. But darkness does not last always. Anybody who ever thought about doing anything great all had to go through a dark season. They could not see their way out. They could not find their way out. They could not have ever fathomed the idea of being able to get to the other side of a scenario and understand that they would have made it, but they did. We look at people and we see them for where they are right now, but we don't know what they had to go through to get to that place. Now, I'm a creative, so I'm gonna speak from the creative standpoint of the people that I look at, whether it be in music. You take a person like Maxwell, or you take a person like Kelly Price. You take people in the media like Kathy Hughes, Oprah Winfrey. You take a motivational speaker, Lisa Nichols. You take a person like in the media industry, Tyler Perry, Steve Harvey. You take any of these types of people, all of them had to go through a dark season. And some of you might not even recognize that they went through it because you may have come into them being who they were, but didn't see what they went through before they got to where they were going. And you're like, oh my God, they did this, they did that. But how did they get there? Because they didn't just pop up. People have this twisted viewpoint of life that people just popped up out. Oh my God, they came out of no, they didn't. No, they didn't. I guarantee you sit down and have a good conversation with that person, they will tell you they did not come out of nowhere. They tell you that there was blood, sweat, and tears that got them to halfway point, and they thought that they wasn't gonna make it to the full way point, and they did. There's those stories, those secret stories. People are like, "Oh, I wish I wish I could be like this person." Do you want their wilderness? Because their wilderness got them to where they are today. Returning back to the Bible, Joseph He was the dreamer, but he had to be thrown in a pit in order for him to be able to fully realize what it was that he had to go through in order to become the emperor, the prime minister. And he still had to go to jail for 3 years, even after he got out the pit. He had to go into a pit, into slavery, and then come out, think he was okay, get accused, and then go back to jail for 3 more years. Sometimes you got to go through seasons, and each season seemingly is worse than the last one, and you're saying to yourself, wait, what? Why am I going through this kind of struggle? Paul and Silas had to be put into prison. And they had to remember in that moment, in that dark space, that it's a darkness that you walk through, but there's a light at the end of that tunnel. And it's through your praise, it's through your prayer, it's through your pressing in when you don't feel like you got no more. You're going to get to the other side of that experience. It's Peter, when he couldn't see his way out of the dark place, that an angel was sent to him that literally opened the gate, and he actually was confused. It's like, wait a minute. He gotten so comfortable, he went to sleep. Some people are asleep in their trouble. A lot of people go to sleep so that they can be in a survival state, meaning I'm in survival mode. As long as I'm in survival mode, I'm okay. But they're comfortable in their survival mode to the point that if somebody comes to them and knocks them upside the head and say, I'm leading you out of this situation, they might be like, what? Wait, somebody actually came to help me? Wait, what? Lead them out the building, out the main gate, and into the city. Some of us, we feel like God needs to snatch us out of the situation immediately, but what if God is taking you through a dark hallway first? Then you got to go from that dark hallway, from the hallway to the exit door to the gate, meaning you got to go through the courtyard. Maybe the courtyard isn't a straightaway path. Maybe it's got some turns and twists to it before you get to the gate. And maybe once you get to the gate, you're still not where you're supposed to be, because once you get on the other side of the gate, you still got to find your way home. And that's a whole word in itself that can be unpacked. Ruth had to walk through a dark season. She lost everything she knew. She lost her husband. She lost her father-in-law. And she was about to lose the woman that she trusted the most, when she even tried to push her away. And she said, no, I'm not going to leave you. Yes, this is a dark season, but I think that we need to stick together, because I don't think that you're going to make it by yourself. So I'm going to stay with you. And she walked the path with her friend all the way to that new city. And by walking with her, she ended up meeting the man. And I always think about this. What if Orpah had gone with them? What would have happened? Had Orpah gotten there and seen Boaz, would she have been trying to get his attention? And who knows? She might have gotten there thinking that she was going to get Boaz's attention, and the kingdom redeemer that was supposed to marry Ruth, that chose not to marry her, might have looked at Orpah and said, I want to marry you instead. And because he chose her, Ruth would have still ended up with Boaz. It was just a thought. I play around with that in my head every once in a while. Meaning she might have actually ended up getting married into the family, but she might not have gotten what she wanted. But who's to say, had Ruth on the flip side decided to go with Orpah and going back to their country, would she have been led astray? There are some people that believe that um, if you go back through the scriptures, that what happened when Orpah returned was that she was sexually assaulted, which brought forth the lineage of, what was it? It's one of the lineages of, like, not the Amorites or something like that, but it's a different lineage that came out of that was birthed from Orpah returning. But you have to walk through a dark season. Sometimes it's just not going to be that easy for you to get to where you're trying to go. Esther. Everyone implores the story of Esther like, oh my God, it was an amazing story, but I heard a minister say it this way and I never really forgot it. She said, do you realize that everybody implores the story of Esther like it's the story of the most beautiful Cinderella story of Esther getting to marry a king and be swept up into the castle, and it was the most beautiful experience because that's the way they tell it. But the way this minister put it, it said, do you realize it was a young girl who was in her late teens who was taken against her will to go into a palace that she had no understanding of what was going to happen, forced to go through a series of beauty treatments whether she wanted to or not, to marry a man that graciously did end up falling in love with her, but do we really know what type of person that person was, and that what it took for him to fall in love with her? And how was he acting up until that point? Because sometimes it takes people time. It's not all roses like they tell it. Maybe he was going through some. Recently, I was listening to a video and somebody made a great point. And they were saying, kingdom spouses, a lot of our females are looking at their kingdom spouses and saying, why is the kingdom spouse taking so long to get to me? But nobody's looking at it from the kingdom spouse's perspective. Maybe the kingdom spouse is in a position to be like the Xerxes. Maybe he is in a position that he's loved by all the people in the gate. Maybe he is in a position that he's graciously in a great position. But ain't nobody looking at the fact that what's the sacrifice he's got to make to marry the kingdom wife? Nobody's looking at the discomfort it's going to cause him to go against what is perceived as what looks good for where he's positioned, to go grab the person that the Lord's saying, go get her. Go get her. But wait, it ain't gonna look all that great if I just go get... God saying, go get her. But that means I'm gonna have to risk being ridiculed. Go get her. But that means that it's not going to look all that great on my end. Go get her. People don't realize, I heard another minister put it this way, that what was it that Joseph was actually risking when he decided to still marry Mary after he found out about the insemination of Jesus and the fact that Jesus was going to be born? What was he truly going to be walking away from? What ridicule was he going to literally go through because people were going to tell him, you should put her away? That even both of them had to walk through a wilderness and a season of separation. What was Xerxes actually going through for choosing Esther and not one of the other women who looked more suitable to be in that position? Granted, he had tons of concubines and wives, but choosing her as the one that he thought was the most finest choice. Going through the separation and seeing who people really were for making the choice to choose her. What did Boaz have to go through for making the choice of choosing Ruth? When all of the noble women and all of the people were telling, because if you listen to the book, Boaz was being told by other people not to approach her, but he was intrigued by Ruth. What effect was it having on his end? Everybody glorifies the female's end, but no one looks at what happened to him. Was Xerxes drinking more because of the effect? Was Xerxes staying away from Esther during those periods of time because of the people that were whispering in his ear when he was away from her? Because he would go and he'd be away from her for periods of time, but yet she was still the most called on woman of all of his concubines. And it was when she wasn't called on, she began to worry. Who was in his ear? And who was he actually allowing to be in his ear at that point in time? Who was he choosing? What was he choosing to do? Because the man can either choose to go in the direction of what other people were saying to try to fit in and stay with the clique, or they could do what a Joseph did, and he left with Mary and went through the journey of that wilderness into that dark place where they had to ride on the donkeys and they had to find their way to the places and they had to be turned away from multiple hotels or inns, and then they ended up having to birth Jesus in a manger. Where is God telling you to go? What is God telling you to do in that place that doesn't feel good? Because you're looking at the path that has the sun shining down on it. It's clear. It's the dancing through the roses, that sunset, beautiful pathway to get to where you got to go. And then the Lord taps you on the shoulder and he points to what looks like the elephant graveyard in The Lion King, and you're looking at him like, excuse me, are you kidding me? And he's saying, go through the thorn path over there. I'm going to bring you water in that wilderness. I'm going to show you the pathway in that wilderness. But no, you can't go the way that you think that you need to go. And you feel a little hurt behind that. But I would like to give you this analogy, because as I was reading the article that this entire thing was birthed from, when you think about actors and actresses in these movies and TV shows, they have stunt doubles, and their stunt doubles have to fall onto a net. The net is laid out underneath them to prevent them from falling on the hard ground. But because they are rolling on the net, they cannot stand. A lot of us go through seasons where we like the safety net. The safety net is somewhat of our comfortable place. So we like the safety net, but we can't stand on the safety net. We know we can't stand on the safety net because every time we try to stand up, the people around us start to push us back down to where they feel comfortable for us to be. And we're like, okay, either I'm going to stand up and get pushed back down, because the safety net, when you try to stand on a safety net, you're going to slip back down because you cannot stand on a safety net because of the buoyancy of the net. It's too loose for you to actually be able to stand for any period of time on it. But if you go on ahead, because I used to always think like this, if you go on ahead and fall, let yourself fall off the safety net and hit the ground. Because sometimes that safety net be hovering about 2 feet above the ground. Sometimes that safety net is just enough in the air. In reality, maybe it's about 6 feet. But it's close enough to the ground that you can jump off of it. If you jump off of it and land on the hard ground, there ain't nowhere else for you to go but for you to get up and stand. And you can then stand on the hard ground. And once you stand, then you can get up fully. Then you can begin to climb out of that situation. But staying on the unsturdy part of the safety net, you're not going to get out of that until you make the decision. I'm going to fall in that hard place, and now I'm going to stand. Walk through your wilderness. Yes, it's hard. Climb out of your hole. Yes, it's hard. But when you do, it'll be worth it. Because your pain will be the thing that turns into the currency that will pay you and pay your way out. You ever wonder how these people ended up with millions and billion-dollar companies? They built it on the pain that they walked through in their wilderness seasons. Those things that they walked through in their darkest valleys. Think about it. Until next time, this is Taj McCameron. Bye-bye.